Greetings, survivors. Are you prepared for an extraordinary weapon confrontation? Today, we are excited to introduce the Kraken Slayer. This weapon boasts remarkable power and versatility, capable of enhancing gameplay across various maps within the Dead Frontier 3D universe. Before we delve into the specifics, let us first provide a brief overview of the Kraken Slayer. The weapon was made available from August 9, 2024 to September 1, 2024 during the Nautical Nightmare event. You may be curious about the cost associated with the Kraken Slayer, priced at 2,200 credits, or 1,800 for gold members. It appears to be investment. However, what truly justifies this weapon's value? It is time to examine the statistics and reveal its hidden advantages. The Kraken Slayer exhibits remarkable overall statistics, requiring minimal attributes for optimal performance. It delivers an impressive damage per second DPS of 521.75, achievable with a basic prerequisite of 50 strength stat points. As a minigun, it boasts a substantial ammunition capacity of 300 rounds, allowing it to maintain this DPS for approximately 35 seconds, thereby providing players ample time to manage aggro and hordes effectively. However, its slow reload speed necessitates a considerable investment in reloading stat points, ideally around 80 to 90, to ensure efficient gameplay during the early stages. In terms of accuracy, the Kraken Slayer has a relatively low accuracy rating, indicating the need for a significant allocation of accuracy stat points, with a recommendation of at least 45 or higher. Notably, it possesses the highest accuracy among miniguns, surpassing both the Tempest and Wraith cannon. A distinguishing feature of the Kraken Slayer is its lack of critical hit chance, which enhances its strength during the early game, allowing players to maximize DPS without the need for critical hit stat investments. Additionally, the Kraken Slayer's ability to negate 70% of zombie armor makes it a favorable choice in the late game, particularly when facing death row zombies. Its special ability enables it to fire 5 projectiles per shot, coupled with enhanced knockback power, rendering it a formidable option against both aggro and bosses. Each pellet inflicts 12 damage, contributing to a commendable damage output for grinding in the Wasteland. This topic will be revisited in the Wasteland section. With a 21-degree buckshot spread and its unique attributes, the Kraken Slayer provides the most consistent experience gain among all minigun variants, rivaling even more expensive shotguns during the early game phase in terms of reliable experience accumulation. The statistical performance of Kraken Slayer is notably advantageous, exhibiting substantial damage output. A comparison with Wraith cannon reveals significant disparities, given that the damage per second DPS of most miniguns does not approach that of Kraken Slayer. A direct comparison is largely irrelevant. The distribution of attributes between Kraken Slayer and Wraith cannon is expected to differ considerably. Kraken Slayer is primarily optimized for the early to early late game, while Wraith cannon is designed to excel in the late game. Furthermore, the initial stat point requirement for Wraith cannon to achieve its maximum DPS is 100 points greater than that of Kraken Slayer. This allocation allows players to invest all available points into dexterity, thereby enhancing the overall DPS of Kraken Slayer, which can reach up to 595.6 to level 145. At level 160, the Wraith cannon can fully leverage its damage per second DPS potential by maximizing critical hits. To surpass the performance of the Kraken Slayer, a player must attain level 176, achieving a DPS of 595.8, although experience gain may be inconsistent. While this level may seem easily attainable through grinding in the Wasteland, it represents a significant hurdle for alternative accounts. The Wraith cannon will consistently underperform compared to the Kraken Slayer until the player reaches level 169. For those intending to create alternative accounts for engaging in event bosses, daily bosses, missions, and challenges activities that scale with player level, this disparity becomes pronounced. Conversely, if a player focuses on a single account, the dynamics shift. The Wraith cannon will outperform the Kraken Slayer once level 176, particularly for non-stat booster classes. Unless the majority of alternative accounts also achieve level 176, players can transition from the Kraken Slayer to the Wraith cannon for enhanced DPS. In the context of Wasteland grinding, the Kraken Slayer offers fewer optimal damage thresholds compared to the Wraith cannon. The optimal damage threshold refers to the damage level that avoids overkill while maximizing potential experience gain. The following outlines the optimal damage thresholds for both weapons, allowing players to utilize damage boost implants effectively to prevent overkill and maximize experience in the Wasteland. The Wraith cannon presents a robust option from mid-game to late game, offering flexibility in implant configurations, and it scales more effectively than the Kraken Slayer in the endgame. Overall, the Kraken Slayer remains a reliable choice for players during the early to mid-game stages. Kraken Slayer exhibits remarkable versatility in its application across various contexts, attributed to its exceptional knockback effect and damage per second DPS capabilities. This weapon proves effective in scenarios such as boss encounters, bandit confrontations, aggro management, and character leveling. An examination of Kraken Slayer's performance across diverse maps and regions will provide further insights into its efficacy. In the context of the Secronom Bunker horde, the Kraken Slayer proves to be an unparalleled weapon against the various mobs present. Its formidable knockback capability, coupled with high damage output and the ability to fire 5 projectiles per shot, renders it a highly effective choice for managing aggro in this environment. When addressing encounters with bosses and within the boss nest, the Kraken Slayer demonstrates no significant challenges against high mobility adversaries. However, it encounters difficulties when facing the Wraith or Flaming Wraith, as its 21 buck spread and reduced accuracy may hinder performance against these long-range attackers. Despite this limitation, the weapon offers robust defensive capabilities that can mitigate most aggro threats during boss fights. In the boss nest, the Kraken Slayer's crowd control abilities are notably effective, establishing it as a reliable option for optimal performance. Nevertheless, to effectively confront the Cryohound and Chod Titan within the boss nest, a movement speed enhancement of approximately 50% to 70% is essential for successful engagement. In the context of confronting Devil Hound spawns within the inner city, the Kraken Slayer proves to be an exceptionally effective tool for managing this formidable super boss. A minimum movement speed enhancement of 35% is necessary for optimal performance. Regarding encounters with bandits, the Kraken Slayer provides a robust defense against aggro. Nevertheless, despite possessing a 21-degree buck spread and respectable accuracy statistics, the Kraken Slayer may encounter challenges when attempting to eliminate individual bandits efficiently, particularly in comparison to other weapons that boast higher accuracy and rate of fire, such as the Warhawk X10 or the Marauder 55. This limitation necessitates that players engage multiple bandits simultaneously, typically 3 to 4, due to the weapon's relative inaccuracy. The prolonged survival of each bandit increases the risk of damage to the player character. However, owing to its high damage output, the Kraken Slayer can effectively neutralize these bandits with relative ease. Kraken Slayer emerges as the preeminent weapon for confronting the relentless hordes in Death Row, demonstrating exceptional efficacy in managing these nightmarish adversaries. Its enhanced knockback capability, coupled with a 60% damage increase, allows it to significantly deplete the health of most zombies while effectively repelling them. Consequently, players need not worry excessively about becoming trapped or cornered when wielding Kraken Slayer. Additionally, during moments of heightened aggression while looting, this weapon provides a formidable defensive position, capable of pushing back incoming threats. Thus, it stands out as an excellent choice for crowd control in the perilous environment of Death Row. When facing bosses and their nests in Death Row, Kraken Slayer delivers substantial damage while ensuring the wielder remains in a secure position against both boss and horde aggression, thereby establishing itself as a trustworthy weapon in such dire circumstances. Moreover, even if a player inadvertently collides with a pole or other obstacles, the robust knockback effect of Kraken Slayer is sufficient to mitigate the risk of sustaining damage. Such errors can often result in fatal consequences. However, the formidable capabilities of Kraken Slayer effectively alleviate this danger, permitting players to navigate minor missteps with greater confidence. In encounters with bandits in Death Row, the Kraken Slayer serves as a robust defensive option against aggressive foes. Nevertheless, the presence of high hit point infected adversaries complicates the ability of players to inflict consistent damage, particularly in open environments devoid of walls or barriers. To effectively manage aggro, a substantial damage boost is essential, alongside a heightened movement speed to evade damage from both bandits and their accompanying hordes. When facing the Behemoth, the Kraken Slayer emerges as an optimal choice for combating this formidable boss. Given the Behemoth's extensive attack range and the Kraken Slayer's box spread of 21 degrees, there is a potential for misfires, even when the weapon is equipped with high accuracy attributes. However, the Kraken Slayer compensates for this with its capability to fire 5 projectiles per shot, ensuring that any misfired rounds do not significantly detract from the overall damage output compared to other crowd control weapons with average or low accuracy. Thus, the Kraken Slayer is highly recommended for engagements with the Behemoth. When utilizing the Kraken Slayer at Camp Valcrest, it is advisable to achieve a speed enhancement of at least 50% to 60%, accompanied by a damage increase of 39% to effectively confront the hordes during an outpost assault. The following outlines the damage thresholds necessary to prevent excessive damage during the outpost engagement at Camp Valcrest for the Kraken Slayer. Adhering to these damage thresholds is beneficial over time, as avoiding overkill facilitates consistent experience accumulation while conserving ammunition, time, and effort. The ideal damage threshold is a 39% boost in the early game, escalating to a range of 108.5% to 109% in the mid-game. For a robust damage threshold, one can achieve a 163.5% boost and a 198% boost in the late game, making it a formidable option for experience grinding during late-game outpost attacks at Camp Valcrest. However, transitioning between different implant configurations from a 108.5% damage boost to a 163.5% 50% boost can pose challenges when moving from mid-game to early late game. In the context of battling bosses and their nests, the Kraken Slayer stands out as one of the premier weapons for engaging these formidable giant beasts. Its enhanced knockback capability is sufficiently powerful to manage aggro effectively, particularly against alpha wolves. Given the Kraken Slayer's exceptional performance in these encounters, there is little further critique to offer regarding this formidable weapon. Overall, it represents an outstanding choice for such confrontations. In the context of managing aggro spikes during looting operations in locations such as chemical plants or prisons, it appears that the current strategy may not be effective. Players have the option to disconnect from the game when faced with an aggro spike, allowing them to quickly retreat to a red or dark red zone where they can confront significantly weaker threats. Utilizing a crown control weapon under these circumstances may not be advisable, particularly in the presence of an aggro spike. Nevertheless, should a player choose to remain and engage with the Horde, the Kraken Slayer possesses sufficient power to eliminate special infected enemies in these environments. It is crucial, however, to remain vigilant regarding explosive zombies, as they can inflict considerable damage if they are in close proximity. While the Kraken Slayer's knockback capability can help maintain a secure position, it is ineffective against explosive infected foes, which can create substantial challenges, compelling players to either halt their fire or abandon their defensive stance. Consequently, the effectiveness of this weapon in these zones is somewhat dubious, making it appear less efficient for Horde clearance compared to a grenade launcher. The journey towards the perilous Wasteland is where the minigun truly demonstrates its significance and utility. The attributes of the Kraken Slayer are sufficient to contend with the Hordes encountered in the Wasteland lane, particularly due to its remarkable knockback capability during the early stages of the game. This is especially relevant given the high costs associated with implant setups, which are exacerbated by the limited availability of implant slots, necessitating the use of endgame implants for optimal performance compared to other grinding weapons. Consequently, the Kraken Slayer emerges as an excellent option. It is advisable for players to reach at least level 145 before venturing into the Wasteland zone. For early gameplay, an effective implant configuration for the Kraken Slayer should focus on enhancing speed and damage through consumable items. Players can employ Devil Hearts and Volatile Leaper Hide to achieve a 35% increase in both movement speed and damage for a duration of 6 hours. This results in a substantial 67% damage enhancement, which is particularly advantageous during the late early game phase. However, the financial investment for this implant setup can reach up to $109 million unless one is utilizing the Soldier class, which reduces the cost to approximately $80 million. It is important to note that the Soldier class incurs a 20% reduction in experience gain, which can significantly hinder leveling progress. While the Kraken Slayer occupies a challenging position, this setup may not be practical for most players. It serves primarily as for those aiming to expedite their progression to a desired level. In reality, many players will engage in looting and boss hunting to acquire adequate gear for effective grinding. Additionally, this budget-friendly setup reflects the situation of players who may have missed major events in Dead Frontier, thereby lacking access to free and powerful implants. In a similar vein, for those lacking a robust setup, Secronom Bunker remains a viable choice for budget-friendly implant configurations. Additionally, the Camp Valcrest outpost, despite being under attack, can serve as an advantageous location for leveling, allowing players to engage in AFK attacks against aggro without complications. The Kraken Slayer, on the other hand, provides a commendable damage output, ensuring that players do not excessively eliminate zombies in the Wasteland. It offers a 39% damage boost during the early game, a 67% boost in the mid-game, a 108.5% boost, and a significant 178% boost in the endgame, culminating in a remarkable 317% boost for super endgame scenarios. However, in contrast to the Wraith cannon's damage capabilities, the Kraken Slayer lacks the same adaptability regarding implant setups, which can create challenges for players transitioning from a 108.5% damage boost to a 178% boost, as this represents a substantial gap. Players can, however, transition their mid-game weapons, such as the Avalanche MG16 or Tempest, to the Kraken Slayer with relative ease, as both heavy machine guns maintain a comparable mid-game damage threshold of 100%. When facing bosses, the Kraken Slayer excels in delivering high damage per second DPS and effective crowd control, obliterating all enemies within its range. This makes it an exceptionally formidable weapon in boss encounters, particularly against formidable foes like the Devil's Hound and Chod Titan. When battling the Volatile Leaper, players can leverage the weapon's impressive accuracy and 21 buckshot spread to ensure that all pellets hit the target within effective range, solidifying its status as the optimal choice for soloing the Volatile Leaper. I have now discussed the application of the Kraken Slayer weapon across various maps. It is now appropriate to assess the effectiveness effectiveness of the Kraken Slayer on the Secronom Bunker map. This location offers a comprehensive range of activities, including looting, boss encounters, and experience grinding, particularly with the addition of quick reaction forces at the fundamental level. Utilizing the Kraken Slayer in Secronom Bunker facilitates a straightforward grinding experience, as the bosses present yield a substantial experience gain multiplier. The necessary gear setup and implant requirements are relatively accessible, making the Kraken Slayer a premier choice in this environment. However, when facing bandits, the Kraken Slayer may encounter some challenges due to the buckshot spread, which can distribute damage across multiple targets. Nevertheless, this limitation does not significantly hinder the weapon's performance, given its exceptionally high damage per second (DPS). Therefore, we assign an A+ rating to this weapon. In the death row map, the focus shifts primarily to looting. Let us explore this harrowing location in greater detail. The death row aggro spike presents a distinctive capability to enhance knockback, significantly improving the effectiveness of aggro encounters. Despite a modest speed boost, this weapon maintains a high level of safety for the user. The formidable Kraken Slayer proves to be a formidable opponent against the death row boss and other bosses, thanks to its exceptional knockback strength, which effectively repels multiple aggro threats from various directions. This characteristic renders the weapon particularly secure for use in boss battles. When facing the behemoth, the Kraken Slayer provides a robust defensive position against both aggro and the behemoth itself, allowing players to afford minor errors, such as being cornered by aggro or colliding with obstacles. However, the Kraken Slayer does not perform as well against bandits due to its buckshot spread. This limitation is especially exploited by death row bandits, as players struggle to eliminate individual bandits efficiently, thereby increasing their vulnerability to damage from bandit attacks. Additionally, the inability to access the inventory during combat leaves players exposed to prolonged assaults from bandits. Consequently, this weapon receives an A rating on the death row map. For Camp Valcrest, the performance of the Kraken Slayer enables players to effectively engage in outpost attacks. The implant configuration is reasonably adequate, facilitating a smooth transition from mid-game to late game for the Kraken Slayer. Additionally, both bosses and their nests pose little challenge to the Kraken Slayer, which possesses significant knockback capabilities and damage per second (DPS) to eliminate these foes. In situations where aggro spikes occur during looting, players can manage the aggro efficiently. However, the explosive zombie variant presents a considerable challenge for the Kraken Slayer, complicating matters more than the typical death row aggro. Overall, this weapon receives a commendable B+ rating. In the Wasteland, utilizing the Kraken Slayer proves to be highly effective across various stages of gameplay. Nevertheless, during the transition from early to mid-game, players may encounter difficulties, as the damage class, soldier class, that complements the Kraken Slayer suffers from significant penalties in experience gain. This makes it challenging to capitalize on the low stat requirements when configuring implants. Moreover, the damage output of the Kraken Slayer in the late game does not match that of leading grinding weapons such as the Sand Scorch or Wraith cannon, resulting in struggles regarding total survival competition (TS). However, the Kraken Slayer can still perform adequately in the late game if players choose to invest in leveling. Overall, this weapon earns a solid A rating. In summary, the Kraken Slayer offers a robust early-game economic advantage due to its minimal stat prerequisites. As the game progresses, it can mitigate intrinsic debuffs typically associated with early-game weapons such as submachine guns or shotguns, which may struggle with damage for luff and complicate gameplay in the Wasteland. This adaptability allows the Kraken Slayer to remain relevant even in the late game. Whether players are just beginning, navigating the mid-game, or approaching the end-game, this weapon consistently delivers satisfactory performance. Furthermore, it is an excellent choice for leveling alternative accounts, defeating bosses, and mastering the machine gun quickly. Hence, the Kraken Slayer's overall performance across the map justifies a solid A rating. We invite you to share your opinions on this remarkable weapon in the comments section below. Thank you for joining us today. Stay tuned for more exciting gaming reviews and updates. Remember to subscribe and enable notifications for thrilling new content. Take care, and see you next time.